Warning! Opinion! We've done medic, we've done spy. It is now a coin flip for the engineer and the scout. Shall we see who we get? Let's do it. It's the scout. All right, we're getting the scout out of the way. Let's do it. I love how all of you are suggesting what I should do first, and I haven't even asked the question yet. Should we get the Sandman out of the way? Because we all know it's fucking terrible. Yeah, let's do that. The Sandman is just, it's honestly, like, let me put it this way. When I was thinking about what the worst item in the game is, it was a tie between the Sandman and the Gas Passer. The only reason why the Gas Passer is worse than the Sandman is because you can make use of the Sandman's rather useless impact more often than you can the Gas Passers. It's the only reason why the Sandman is only like so tiny, itsy bitsy, less bad than the Gas Passer, right? Because both are equally and hideously ineffective. Both of them suck cock. Both of them are barely functional and are in desperate need of a rework. They're absolutely terrible. But this thing is horrendous. Next to the Gas Passer, the worst fucking item in this video game. It doesn't work half the time. Its upside is pointless on a class like Scout, and it's just like, why would you ever use this thing in its current state in comparison to any of his other melee options? It is so hideously bad. The current version of the Sandman slows people down to the speed of stun, which is like slightly slower than a heavy, or it's around the speed of a heavy, I think, in terms of hammer units per second. And when you get hit by the ball, depending on how far the ball has traveled, that's how long you're moving at stunned speed. What you're supposed to do with this item, at least this is my interpretation of it, is you're supposed to hit your target from medium, some kind of a distance where you're not within your effective range of your scattergun, right? You pop them with the ball, that slows them down, and then you use your heightened mobility to your advantage, close the distance faster on your now slower moving target, so you can get them with your scattergun. And then I guess they decided, as a drawback to the scout's target now being less mobile, you have to take away some of his health in order for it to be a fair fight. That's how I've always seen this item, and especially now in its current balancing state. But the unfortunate thing about that is it doesn't really matter, because Scout is so mobile in comparison to any of the other classes that extra bit of slowness on your target doesn't make that much of a difference, because not only do you have the fastest movement speed in the game, you can double or triple jump if you're using the fucking Atomizer. So it's like getting more mobility over your opponent is pointless when you're already the most mobile class in the game. Second, and I mentioned this with the Natasha, the stun effect is bugged. If you spam strafe, if you spam your AD and AD key over and over again, you're not gonna get slowed down. And yeah, I know a lot of people probably are, well, not a lot of people know that that's a bug in the game. Well, I'm trying to spread the word so people know that it's fucking busted. Third, takes away 15 health on the class with already the lowest health pool in the game, who is so fucking squishy. Oh, why would you ever want to use this thing? It is so hideously bad. It's horrible. Before they nerfed it into the floor, which it really did need, by the way. The Sandman desperately needed to be nerfed, because the way it worked before is that it completely removed your ability to shoot. You were hard stunned. You could only move around, assuming you didn't get hit by a moonshot. If you were hit by the maximum distance, you couldn't move at all. You couldn't defend yourself. You're just fucked. And on the previous version, if it was anything other than a moonshot, you could still move, but you couldn't shoot, which was fucked. You were left completely defenseless, and it was absolute ass to have to deal with. It's suddenly you're moving along, and all of a sudden someone Hail Marys a fucking baseball from across the map. Ah, I suddenly can't shoot now. Guess I'll die. It was honestly a stupid way to make an item in a fucking FPS game. It was cool in that it could be comboed with the cleaver. That actually took a little bit of practice and skill to make use of, but since the class couldn't retaliate and shoot back, it made it hideously unfair to use that combo against somebody. That was an issue, so they removed the ability for the cleaver to hit stunned targets, and they removed the Sandman's ability from stun to slow, which is still counted as stun, but not really. It's a weird way they changed it. But as it stands right now, just again, one of the worst items in the game. It's really stupid. And what they need to do is they need to completely rework this thing so it does something different. A thought that I've had is maybe they could find a way to turn this into some kind of a DM weapon. Scout already has 2 other projectile-based weapons. He has the Rap Assassin and he has the Cleaver. Maybe he could... Oh, God, I don't know. Maybe just make the baseball do, like, a chunk of damage or something. I'm not entirely sure what they could do to, like, make it interesting, but not just a clone of the Rap Assassin. It's tricky to figure out, because if you're wanting to go for a projectile weapon that does a lot of damage, then you're just gonna use this thing, because the base damage on the Cleaver is, like, what, 60? It's really high. I think it is 60 anyway. 50, my bad, not 60. 50 damage on this thing. So yeah, if you wanted to do ranged damage with a projectile, you're gonna use this thing. You're gonna use this thing. I don't know what they could do to make it stand out and be interesting, you know? It needs something, because it's just horrible. Scattergun? Yeah, I guess we get the stock Scattergun out of the way. Yeah, we can get stock Scattergun out of the way. It's the stock Scattergun, and I think what's interesting about the stock Scattergun is a lot of people don't know that it's just a normal shotgun with a different damage ramp-up modifier, and that's it. This is just the stock shotgun, same firing rate. Yeah, it just has higher damage ramp-up to like over a certain, it's like 150% for normal stock shotguns. This one goes to like 190, something like that? 175%. Thank you. I could not remember. Yeah, it's 175% compared to the normal 150% for every other shotgun, yes. So, usually the Scattergun is just, I mean, it's Scout's best option. That's what I've always firmly believed. It's just a good item. I don't really know how else to put that. And what's something interesting too, I guess this could bring up an interesting argument for random bullet spread. I've been tweaking and playing with a video about random bullet spread for a little while, and a lot of people don't like random bullet spread because it makes your ability to do predictable damage a little less predictable. And I went into the game and I ran some tests on how often random bullet spread actually fucks over your damage, and surprise surprise, the results are your damage is random via a Gaussian distribution. Who would have thought, right? Random bullet spread's actually random. But in terms of the amount of time it actually fucks you over, in terms of the amount of damage you should be normally doing within a very small range, it's not that often. It's like 1 out of 6 to 1 out of 8 shots you're getting completely fucked by random bullet spread at medium to long range. At close range, it doesn't happen nearly as often because, again, you have a closer area of impact with your hit scan, so RBS doesn't fuck you over as much. The thing about Scout, he has the highest mobility. He can get in and out of fights very quickly. Random bullet spread is a very important balancing factor for this glass cannon of a class, because if you remove random bullet spread, it's just an inadvertent buff to the Scout, which is whoa. And thing is, yeah, random bullet spread is a balancing mechanic, especially for single shot weapons like pistols, revolvers, the SMG, and the minigun. Could you imagine any of these weapons with random bullet spread without random bullet spread? Firing perfectly accurate shots over and over again. Ooh, it'd be a little bit busted. People only make the argument to remove random bullet spread on shotguns, but none of these things because it's required for balance on these things, but for this, oh no, we can't have that. The damage of these becomes more and more unpredictable at greater distance, as it should with the shotgun. It makes sense, especially for balance. Anyways, stock Scattergun, I mean, it's largely fine. It's usually just your best option most of the time. Anyways, let's do... I guess the Backscatter, it's just, this is a temporary placement, relax. I don't know, I'm not sure where this is gonna go yet. The Backscatter is, I guess, an interesting concept. It lets you do mini crits from behind at a clip size penalty of 1/3, and then you have, it's what, 20% less accurate? Something like that? And the problem with the Backscatter is, back hitboxes are incredibly janky, and you have to be like right in the meat of somebody and actually getting that back hitboxes to make use of it. And it just makes Scout's effective range that much more narrow, and you have 2 less shots for an upside that is very rarely realized unless you manage to completely sneak up behind somebody and get those mini crits. I feel like all of the downsides on this weapon don't balance out the one very situational upside where you actually manage to get in the meat behind someone's back to deal those mini crits. Especially for Scout, whose range is already very limited with his Scattergun because it's a shotgun. If you just want to be going for chip damage, why would you reduce that range even further with a wider spread? To me, that makes no sense. That's already a massive downside on your damage, right? And I guess the upside is that, oh, you're more powerful at close range because you can deal mini crits from behind. And yes, you're the most mobile class in the game that can, you know, loop around your target and get behind them and deal the mini crit. But at that point, 2 extra shots are a lot better than just having to jank yourself around and having to position yourself so you can get those back mini crits, you know? I'm not a fan of the way they've put this. But the problem is that even though you have these downsides with this weapon. It's still a scattergun, and every scattergun is still really good because it's a shotgun, right? So you can still be good at scout and make use of the backscatter, and it's still not dog shit. It's just pretty much always less effective than the stock scattergun. And it's not B tier by any means. I think it's like, I'll leave it middle of the road, like bottom of C tier. Whenever I play TF2, this is easily the least used scattergun in the game. I rarely see people ever using this thing. I almost never see this thing in game. I think I've been killed by this thing once over the past year, maybe 2 years. No one ever uses this thing. It hovers between bottom of C tier, upper D tier. I'm gonna leave it in C tier, but at the bottom only because it's a scattergun and you can still be very effective with it. We'll leave it there, not saying it's like, oh, it's amazing, but you can still be good with the backscatter and, you know, be an effective scout despite its downsides and situational upside. Babyface's Blaster Easy A, here's the thing. There's a very general thought about scout, in that anything that increases the scout's mobility is insanely good. The only exception to that is this thing. This thing is sometimes good and sometimes really bad, because this thing punishes you for double jumping, which is what defines good scout gameplay, is juking out your opponent, effectively never touching the ground and killing them when you're in the air. This punishes you for doing that, which is a pretty gnarly downside. I don't know, man. But the faster movement speed you get on this thing is crazy good. If you're much like a ground play scout, like I am because I don't pump 9,000 hours into one class, this thing can be really fucking good. The speed is awesome, but if you get pinpricked or fucked, you can get fucked over by hit scan like that. If a heavy catches you in your sights for 2 seconds, you immediately lose that speed. Or if you get shot by one scattergun or a pipe or a riot, you immediately lose half or all of that speed. It's like a more polarizing fucking Islander. It's very easy to get that movement speed, but it's also very, very easy to lose it. So you experience the highs and lows of this weapon far more often. I find that I experience the lows of this weapon far more often because you just die because you're moving 10% slower, but 10% slower on a scout is still not that bad compared to how it used to be, where it started you off even slower. But I still consider this thing better than this thing because this thing rewards skill more than situational nature. Because if you can place your shots well, juke out your targets well enough on the ground, and time double jumps when you need them, you can exploit that faster movement speed incredibly well. But is it like a whole bunch better than this thing? Not really, but it's still marginally more useful. And I consider it a tier above, but only by like this much. It's barely outside of C tier, because you can still be fairly good with it, but not as good as this, and it's better than this. Just because it's not as good as something else, it's still really fucking fun to use. It's so fun moving at fucking Mach 9, just fucking zipping around, just fucking blast. It's like, you fucking hit a sniper like a truck because you're moving as fast as a goddamn roadster. You run up into his ass and pop him with 2 shots, and then you're fucking out of there like it never fucking happened. I love doing that shit. That is so fun to do with the Babyface's Blaster. But if you're trying to play, yeah, there you go, meta equals fun. If you're trying to play like your normal, you know, our sweaty tryhard stock scattergun, stock pistol, and Boston Basher for ubercharged faster rate, yes, you know, then you're not gonna be able to do that. You have to play very, very differently with either the Backscatter or the Babyface's Blaster. But they're fun. Alternative ways to play a class. And here's why I don't like playing Scout that much. It's boring. It's hideously boring. You're jumping and shooting and jumping and shooting. I need variety in my gameplay. And I thank God, I thank the devs that they put items like this in the game, as well as the cleaver and the rap assassin and things like that, to give this class some variety, man. A little bit. Not talking like subclass thing, but just slightly different playstyles to fucking spice it up, man. I played Scout for 100 hours and I didn't touch him again. Because it's like, okay, well, I've mastered this, I have nothing else to try now. And it's like, okay, maybe I'll try other weapons now. And the Babyface's Blaster is fun. Force of Nature is fun. I love using the cleaver and the fucking rap assassin. Fun, not as good as stock. Doesn't need to be tweaked. I think it's in an okay spot. This thing sucks dick. What else sucks dick? This? Fucking sun on a stick. Oh, Christ. I mean, okay, so there's 2 things with this weapon. It has a 25% damage penalty. You deal crits on burning targets, and then you have, I think it's also a 25% damage resistance to fire. So that removes or 1 damage of afterburn per tick. So it's just not that useful unless you're experiencing direct flame damage. So it makes you a little bit more survivable. It makes you a little bit less squishy against pyros, but it's only when it's active. It's not passive. It's only when it's active when you get that fucking 25% resistance, which is fucking brutal. It's like, if it was a passive resistance, then you would probably see this thing get a lot more use. But the fact that it has to be out makes me just never want to fucking use this thing. And also, yeah, because we need more pyro counterplay. Exactly, yeah, that's something else too. So I'm pretty much never using this thing for the fire resistance. I'm only using it for the stupid gimmick of walking at someone who's on fire and smacking them to death. It's the only reason why I'm using this thing. I'm never using this for the damage resistance against fire. It's just really ineffective. But the problem is, it's like, it's also not broken. And even though it's like really bad, does it need to be reworked? I don't know. It's still really bad, but it's like, it's not broken and it's not offensive. It's just not good. That's not really an argument to make it better, because like, oh, just because it's not as good as these other melee options doesn't mean it's like, it needs to be reworked in any capacity, unlike this, which is just broken. Looking at it, they should just make it do more damage per swing, but swing slower and maybe keep the fire resistance. It's a mace. No, increasing Scout's melee damage is not a good idea, because it just gives him more high damage options at his effective range and high mobility, making him harder to hit, and you're just being a harder heavy hitter with your fucking melee. Because for that, it's like a get out of jail free card. Imagine giving this thing higher base damage. If you fucking miss all your shots, well, don't gotta worry about that. Melee, and then kill your target anyway. No, not a good idea. His base damage on his melees should be low, unless it has some seriously high kind of punishment like the Boston Basher does, right? The Boston Basher, temporary placement, relax. I know people get very upset, like, oh, why is it in B tier? Why is it in B tier? It should be low, it should be high. Relax. Don't know about the placement for this one yet. We're just talking about it. Gonna give it its correct position in a moment. Unlike this thing, which does let you deal more damage per swing because it has bleed, but if you fucking miss, you hit yourself and chew your health away. Fair downside for this, you have to very much guarantee and secure a hit, otherwise you hit yourself and you die. Unless you got a medic in your ass, and then you can use that to build Uber, which is why this is like your normal comp strategy item, right? Because you're just gonna milk Uber with this thing on a hurt scout to build your Uber in exactly 40 seconds minimum. Why are you ever using melee damage on Scout? That's why they use this thing in competitive so much. Their Scouts aren't going for melee damage, they're going for faster Uber building rate. And that's what makes this thing so good, is because you can juice out Uber insanely quickly. That's why I want to move this thing. I'm not going to keep it in B tier. In casual mode, right, it's far more chaotic and crazy that you're pretty much only ever using this thing as like your little gimmick strat. I'm going to fucking beat this guy to death and have him bleed. Oh, I'm going to miss twice and kill myself. Ah, funny. In competitive, they're only, again, using this thing to milk Uber. In like normal regular Scout gameplay, it's not that great. It's certainly like, you can still be fairly effective with it. It's like top C tier, not bottom of C tier like this thing is. Top C tier, bottom C tier. But it's not like, oh, and of course, oh, here we go. No, competitive players are gonna get mad. Oh, Zesty, you don't play competitive Scout, so you don't know how good this thing is. You have to understand that the Boston Basher is the best item for Scout because it makes medics build uber faster, and on the rare chance you have someone out by themselves, you can smack them with it and make them do some damage. Ooh. It's just not that amazing. It's good. It's not great though. Yeah, it also gives, yeah, you can do that weird jump gimmick where you hit yourself and you can boost yourself up higher. So if you have max overheal, if you want to get yourself to a better spot, yeah, but if you don't, you're just hurting yourself for better positioning. And when you want better positioning with a melee, just give yourself a triple jump with this thing, or higher jumps with the winger. If you want mobility from a melee, use the Atomizer, because triple jump on Scout is fucking amazing for that reason. And we come back to that argument that I posed earlier, that anything that gives Scout higher mobility is insanely good. And that's why this always beats out this thing in terms of mobility enhancement. Because a third jump is stupid good. And you can just whip this thing out, jump really quickly, and immediately put it away, without having to worry about having to get to a health kit to prevent yourself from bleeding to death. Before, this thing let you triple jump by default without having to have it be active. Now it has to be active in order for you to perform the triple jump, which is actually a good thing, because before it would hurt you when you did that triple jump, but that's it. Now it doesn't hurt you, has a slower swing speed, but does a mini crit while you're airborne for some reason, but gives you the triple jump while it's out. So for people that can get better repositioning, it's good. And it used to be banned, aimbot. It used to be banned. I remember now, because Scouts weren't punished enough for using that triple jump. All they needed was a slight buff from their medic, and they could do that triple jump whenever they wanted and be fucking unkillable. Whereas now, they can effectively not attack when they want to use that triple jump, because melee attacks on Scout are hideously ineffective. So now they gotta pull it out in order to have that increased mobility, and then they can go to town after they put it away. We'll put it down here in B, actually. Certainly better than Babyface's Blaster, but we'll put it in B tier. But the Atomizer is very good because it boosts Scout's mobility in a very balanced way, unlike how it used to be. Now Scout has to actually sacrifice something worthwhile in order to get that extra jump. But that sacrifice isn't so hideously bad or slow that it prevents it from ever being useful or usable. And it's very effective for people that want to be, you know, mobile. And I've seen people go crazy with this thing. I've seen people pair this with a fucking Force of Nature, and they never touch the ground. It's really fucking annoying to fight. We do know a weapon that doesn't use that balance. Yeah, is it this thing? Is it the soda popper? Put it in A tier. Oh, why is it broken? Put it in A tier. This, I still don't like where this thing is, man. There's a couple things about the fucking soda popper. There's two things I hear floating around about it. People say this thing has higher DPS than the stock Scattergun only on the first 2 shots because it's the same spread, same base damage, but it's you crank out 2 shots and then you gotta do a longer reload. Whereas with the stock Scattergun, you immediately have your 3rd shot ready and primed to go. But there's the mobility on this thing. The mobility on this thing is ridiculously good. And I think the soda popper is still banned in competitive. I'm pretty sure it is for that reason, because competitive level scouts are gods of aim, right? They never have to worry about dealing an inconsistent damage amount in order to build up the hype with this thing so you can get the extra jumps. And when a scout can never fucking touch the ground, that sucks dick to play against, because he's just dancing around his target doing the exact same damage as the stock Scattergun with 2 rapid fire shots being pumped into his target. Oh, it's brutal. For me, I would still go for the stock Scattergun because it's just far more consistently reliable than the soda popper. That's why I like using this more than this. But this, in skilled hands, fucking sucks ass to play against. It's really good. But this is always gonna be far more consistent, far more reliable, and you don't have to worry about dealing enough damage in order to use that hype. I don't know. Do I want to give this A tier? I don't feel like I want to give the soda popper A tier because I just still find the stock Scattergun just so much better, man. Because the problem, yeah, I agree. I'm gonna put it in high B tier because another downside with this is, like, you still have to be relatively close to your target to be dealing the maximum amount of damage, and the more jumps you perform, you're still putting yourself at a further distance away from your target. You're doing less damage as a fall off and spread. You still having to be right in the meat, so I would still, I don't know, man. Upper B, lower A. No, I'm gonna stick with my guns on this one too. I'll leave it at A. Bottom of A tier for the soda popper. We'll still leave it there. If you're going for the burst damage, I like the Force of Nature. Force of Nature's fun. I love using the Force of Nature, man. I have the most fun playing Scout when I'm using the Force of Nature because I just love fucking annihilating people with this, man. God, a lot of people forget that the soda popper and the Force of Nature have that faster firing speed. So those 2 consecutive rapid fire shots do insanely good burst damage. But people forget that first rapid fire shot on the Force of Nature stuns your target, and then you do the quick follow-up with the second one, and they're fucking dead. If you delay your 2 shots with the Force of Nature, you're only gimping yourself. You have to do the quick 1-2 with this. You stun, you kill, and you're fucking knocking people around. Oh man, I love using this thing. I will never, ever get tired of waiting by a cliff and blasting someone in the fucking nuts and sending them careening off a cliff. It is so fucking fun. Also, at medium to close range, it's going to consistently do more damage than the stock Scattergun because it's got more pellets with a slight damage penalty. I don't know if many of you are familiar with how bullet spread works on this item. Your normal configuration looks like this. It's a 3x3 grid, but there's 2 pellets stacked in the center that overlap each other, and it widens with distance. If random bullet spread is on, the other 9 pellets are random in distribution. The 10th pellet is always in the center and always 100% accurate, and that goes for any shotgun and any scattergun. But with the Force of Nature, because it has 12 pellets instead of 10, the configuration looks like this. It's exactly the same, but you have 3 pellets in the center, and you have 2 pellets to the right of center. So if you're at close to point blank range or like close medium range, you will always consistently do more damage than the stock scattergun. But there's 2 caveats to that. The Force of Nature pushes your target away, and when you're pushing your target away, you're fucking yourself over because of spread and damage fall off. So if you're not quick enough to follow up with that second shot, you're not making the most use out of that damage bonus that you get from those extra pellets. And then when random bullet spread is on, you still only have one pellet that's perfectly accurate in the center. Force of nature is very fun, but you gotta be careful. You gotta remember that you're knocking your target further away from you. So you gotta really gauge when you wanna fire off and volley off that next shot so you can secure that kill. And when you do that, this thing is super fucking fun. Love this weapon. It's so hideously underrated. I know competitive players like to bitch and moan about it, like, oh, it pushes your target away from you, and you only have 2 shots, and you do less damage at further range, and wow. It's like, no, this thing's fucking fun. I've seen people go fucking bananas with this thing. Use it more often. It's fun. Going into these tier lists, I wanted people to understand that I'm not doing this in some sort of extremely rigid, strict way. I'm not doing this to like say, this is objectively the best and this is objectively the worst. These are just my opinions on how I experience each of these items in the game. It's gonna be a mix of how effective they are and how fun they are. It's not gonna be just one or the other. I'm not going about this through some like hardcore competitive mindset, like this is the best and only good option. No, this is how I like the items. This is how I experience them. Are they fun? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they not? You know, it just depends. Thoughts on Guillotine? Let's do the Guillotine. I really enjoy the Guillotine. For me, I find that your normal scattergun, pistol, whatever melee scout, that gets really dry and boring for me. I'm sure many of you know I much prefer playing the projectile classes in this game, and giving a projectile to the normal hit scan class really makes me want to play this class more. And this item is not only good, but it's really fucking fun to use, man. I just like, ooh, getting a good fucking chuck with this thing on somebody and following up with a scattergun shot. Oh man, it's better than a fucking bucket of fried chicken just dumping that shit on your face. It's so fun using this thing, right? I love this item. It is so fun because you can spam it and you just got a fucking Hail Mary cleaver on somebody. That's 50 damage up to 90 with bleed on the after effects of it. And the recharge is really fast. The most recent version of it, I think, is very good because they tweaked it so it doesn't mini crit, or was it crit stun to targets, which I think was perfectly necessary because it was still a fairly high damage item, and now it's in a perfect spot in that it can be combined, you know, with stunning options. Where it's at now is awesome. This is easily my most used secondary on Scout because it's just great, right? Put it in A tier? Yeah, fuck you. I'm putting it in A tier. It's really good. And what's also fun about this item, you can immediately because you know where people are gonna go, and you're just gonna fucking chuck it down a choke, and you know it's gonna hit somebody. They're gonna get fucking smacked by it. You know. And wasn't it banned in fucking competitive for that reason? Because scouts could just chuck the cleaver down a choke where people know it's gonna go, and they're gonna hit the med, and that's 90 damage on the med, and one follow-up shot, and it's fucking curtains for the med. Don't they hate this thing for that reason? It's allowed in Highlander, which I guess make more sense because it's basically, you know, diet casual games. Am I gonna go for another kind of boring hit scan secondary, or am I gonna throw a giant fucking knife at people? I'm gonna use this. It's awesome. I would consider the cleaver a slight upgrade, if not an equal side grade to just the stock pistol because of how effective it can be. You gotta get good with it at aiming a projectile as Scout, a very mobile class, and once you get good with it, this thing is, wow. Oh, it's fun. I love this shit. Do stock pistol? I'll do stock pistol. The stock pistol is also just, I don't know. I'll leave it in A tier. Stock pistols is just your bread and butter, good classic follow-up damage when either you whiff all your fucking shots and your target is still alive. So it's like, fuck, I just gotta use my pistol now. Or you get caught out without loaded shots and then you can pepper down somebody that you want to finish off. Or doing really good chip damage from a distance, right? If you got a fucking sentry gun you want to chip at, pistol it. Does full base damage, and it's really good against stationary sentry targets or buildings or what have you. It's just really good. It's just the classic combo item with effectively any scattergun. It's just very good. Easily like the second best, if not on par with the best option. That is the cleaver for a secondary option for Scout. It's very good. Pretty Boy's pocket pistol. This thing is interesting because it's simultaneously the worst and simultaneously the best pistol option for Scout. The faster firing rate gives you a higher burst of DPS, which is really good if you want to finish somebody off quickly, but I just don't really feel like I'm gonna be using this thing that often to get my health back. Because if you're already engaged in some kind of a close close range fight and you're whipping out your pistol in order to get like a pittance of health back, especially against like a high damage class like a soldier or a demo who's gonna finish you off in 2 shots anyways, that extra health back, it's not really gonna save you. You're only trying to get that health back if you're chipping at someone from a distance, but if you're doing that, then just run away and get to a health kit. I've only ever used this thing for that higher burst of damage to like pick somebody off. But beyond that, it's like, I just don't feel like that health back on hit is all that useful. Whenever I'm fighting a scout that's using this thing with any other primary weapon, I'm still effectively able to kill him just as easily with anything. It's like, it doesn't really help that much. And I still almost never see people use this thing. I haven't seen this thing in a game in months, which is strange because it's not like it's bad. It's still very good. The health back on hit, if you manage to land all your shots, is very good. It's going to save you in some niche situations. The higher burst damage on, was it 9 shots per clip instead of 12, is pretty good. It's still, to me, it's like, I still would much prefer to rely on the stock pistol or the cleaver for just more damage and then use my mobility to get out and get to a health kit anyway. Why would I risk staying in a fight that I know I'm going to lose because I have low health to whip out a weapon whose health back on hit not only relies on my aim, but random bullet spread as well to secure my ability to survive? It's too inconsistent with the health you get back unless you're like really close to somebody. And then again, if you're already close to that somebody, you're probably better off using your fucking scattergun anyway to kill them faster and take that risk over getting just barely enough health back to get out. I just don't use this thing that much. It's good, but not amazing. I would still consider the Atomizer more useful and more fun than the Babyface's blaster. Oh, let's get the stock bat out of the way. Okay, so, I mean, it's stock melee damage. You're doing 35 per swing. Crits on this thing are dumb, sure. But, I mean, if you want to go for, like, effectiveness factor, this is more useful and this is more useful. But it's not like it's horrible, because, again, like I was mentioning earlier, how often are you going for melee damage on Scout? Stock bat, very underwhelming in comparison to most of his other melee options, in terms of usability and utility. You want to be a moron? You want to go around and fucking beat people to death with your fucking bat or your fucking fish? Or what have you. This is fun to do that. But if you're actively going out of your way to either use your melee for damage or to use your melee for some kind of utility, this thing doesn't have either of those options. It's not nearly as good as this thing or this thing for utility or damage. So it fails in both of those departments. So it's like, but it's still, to me, better than the fucking sun on a stick, because the sun on a stick's upsides are just so hideously situational. Why would you ever use it? So for me, it's like, I would still prefer the normal damage of the stock bat with random crits and just to beat the fuck out of people instead of this dumb gimmick item. But here's the thing, it's like, is it bad? Is it bad? I don't want to consider this bad. No, fuck you. It's like low C tier. It's like, it's not bad. It's stock melee. Can stock melee be bad? I've put others in D tier before, but it doesn't mean that they're horrible. I don't know. I'll leave it at bottom of C tier for now. It's average. Yes, thank you. It's not bad. It's average. It's bottom of C tier. We'll leave it there. Oh, I put the stock shovel in E tier. That's because every other melee, literally any other melee option on Soldier, all of them are better than the stock shovel. That's why. And it's not fun using the stock shovel on Soldier because you're slow and you whip it out. It's like, well, guess I'm standing here with this thing now and I don't really know what to do. It's like, have you seen that? It's like the fucking I don't know what to do with my hands thing. Whenever I see a soldier walking around with just the stock shovel out, that's immediately what I think of. I don't know what to do with my hands. Out of any of the classes, I think I may have put the stock fire axe also comparably as low for that reason, because you're whipping out the stock fire axe. It's like, well, what do I do? It's like, it's my first time here. What do I do? Do I attack? Do I run? I don't know. I'm out of ammo. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I don't know what to do. Mom, come pick me up. I'm scared. Oh, it's so good. Please, I would pay money to see someone draw the fucking stock soldier that way, or like the stock pilot, just like default, no cosmetics, holding the stock melee item. Mom, come pick me up. I'm scared. We haven't touched the drinks yet. Bonk? Okay, I'm putting Bonk in D tier. The original Bonk Atomic Punch, it didn't really have any strong downside before because you just had invincibility but you weren't really punished after using it. You could still move at your normal speed after the effects wore off and you could get behind enemy lines fairly easily and then be completely mobile and fine afterwards. And then they nerfed it to where you're slowed down based off of how much damage you take while invincible, and then you're slowed down by that amount after the effects wear off. It's primary use is still there. It still lets you get behind enemy lines in the exact same way. The only difference is now you're slow for a little while after the effects wear off, and it just made it that much worse when it was never used that often anyway. People were really only ever using the bonk as a gimmick in like your normal casual game. People would just fucking suck that shit down. They'd go puppy guard an enemy sentry gun and have it shoot the enemy engineer and kill him that way, and then taunt and then go about their merry way, or go for like a fucking taunt kill while they're invincible. That's also funny and fun. I'm still kind of convinced that this was one of the items that also got nerfed because competitive players complained about it, because it let Scout get behind enemy lines completely unabated, unpunished, to then wreak havoc on whoever was there with his normal movement speed and normal damage output. That's why this got destroyed. And in casual games, it didn't really make a difference. People still kind of use it and it still has the same outcome. If people know the Scout is behind you, he's gonna die, regardless if he's moving slower or not. Ultimately, it was never that good in any competitive format because of the amount of communication going on. People know that the Scout's gonna be there, so they're gonna go kill him anyway. So why nerf it, you know? And even then, the nerf isn't like that terrible, but it's like I would still prefer to use kind of anything else to be a fun Scout with a different melee. I'm only ever gonna use this thing for the reason I described before. I'm gonna drink the soda, I'm gonna go hug a sentry, and try to get it to shoot the enemy engineer. This is the only time I'm ever using the Bonk Atomic Punch, is to somehow manage to pull that off, because that shit is fun. It's a much better get out of jail free card, right? Like if you're at low health, you're fucked, you got like 5 or 6 people coming after you, you fucking slick that shit down, you get out of jail for fucking free, you can't die, you zip away to safety, right? Unless you have something like a sentry gun or a pyro that's keeping you in place, you pretty much get out all the time. You're free, you're out of there. But it's like, at that point, if you're already that low at health, I may as well just go down guns blazing and just fuck it, try to take someone with me if I'm gonna die, and not chicken out and sip a soda and live. I find this far less fun than any of these other ones, really. It's a classic TF2 item. The fucking bonked Scout dicking around, getting behind enemy lines, getting fucking shoved up into a corner by a sentry gun. That's always fucking funny to see a Scout fucking just nudged up there. He can't fucking move. It's like, oh, I just gotta fucking die now. That's always funny to see. But it's just, it's fine. It's always had its spot in the game. Always had its spot. It's fine. Why are you guys obsessed with me talking about the Mad Milk? This is the most requested one I've seen so far. You guys really want me to talk about this. Is it because you want to make cum jokes? Get it out of your system now before I ban the word. Do it now. You have 15 seconds to make all of the cum jokes you want. And then the next person I see say cum gets banned. Do it now. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yo. We are in the midst of a social media, it's the end of the world, it's the blackout of social media. Thank God we are experiencing a glimpse of how the world used to be back in 2003, and frankly, I miss it. I've been getting a lot of questions about my little medic bust back here. So, funny story in regards to fucking Dr. Bogdanov right here. So, this is a bust of the, it's a workshop item. I think it's called, like, Fantastic Dr. Plastic. I don't recall who made. I'll put a link somewhere in the description. But there's a running gag in my fucking Discord or what have you about every time I buy skins or what have you, because I like to collect TF2 skins and whatnot, that I fuck up the prices, especially on, like, older, more rare shit. So it's like I buy something and then, like, the fucking prices get screwed up. And of course, you know, if you're familiar with the bog meme, it's like, he bought? I mean, that you know if you know what I'm talking about, then you get the idea. Someone's like, hey, you want me to 3D print this stupid shit for you? And I'm like, yeah, sure, tell me what color you like. And my favorite color is orange. And yeah, this lovely man showed up in the mail one day, and it's frankly a really neat possession that I will keep and cherish forever, and he has his rightful place right on my shelf right there. So yeah, these tier lists are going pretty well. We've only got 2 more to go after this one. We have the engineer and we have the sniper, eagerly awaited, I'm sure, so you guys can bitch and moan at me in the comments more. Our sniper is now broken. Oh boy, here we go. Oh, with the opinions on the video game, and we're gonna fucking drag his nutsack over the coals because he has something to say. You guys seem to be enjoying the tier lists. I'm having a lot of fun doing these live stream shows, and you know, throwing them up on YouTube for everyone to see is it's cool. I like engaging in conversation about this game, and it's one of the main reasons why I started doing videos in the first place, is because I just like the game. I like talking about it, and it's fun. But what these past several weeks have shown me is that I would never want to do YouTube for a living if that meant I had to sacrifice visual and audio quality like this to kind of squirt out a video every week or every few days so I could pay the bills. I hate that. It's something I want to expand on a lot more in the near future, but I don't do YouTube for a living, and if people still think I make videos for a living, no, this is an awful way to earn money. I much prefer the stable income that I have with my job. I much prefer the stable income that I have with my job as a researcher while I'm working on my PhD program, so that's just a lot more stable. It's more skill-based and doesn't rely on a platform that can fuck you over if they decide to change their algorithm. It's not stable, it's not safe, it's not smart. I just don't like the idea. And for me, I make YouTube videos as a creative outlet. I just want to get my hands dirty and make something that is visually appealing. I can share an opinion or what have you. It helps me deviate away from my otherwise very analytical and scientific career path, which I also enjoy, but I need a break. I need to use the other side of my brain every now and again. If I don't, I go fucking crazy. So YouTube videos it is. But no, I would never... If I had to squirt out a video like this every week like I'm doing right now and having to hire editors and lose control over the entire process from start to finish, no, that's not why I make videos. I make videos because I personally like to make them, and I like producing something of high quality visually and something for you to chew on or you know, scratch your head about a little bit, something like that. I don't like, oh, something... Oh, there's a fucking new item that was produced in the video game. Look, we have a Community Sparkle Eraser. It's a 6-minute video about Community Sparkle Eraser. Oh, it's so cool. It got put in the game now. Look. Yes. Why bother? It's like it's such a nothing of substance thing. I don't want to ever have to resort to that sort of thing, and I don't like making that shit. I don't like watching it either. I'm not going to make something that I personally don't like to watch. If you want to rip me a new one for whatever reason, for something you don't like in this video, leave a comment, because commenting helps the YouTube algorithm decide whether or not it wants to promote a video. And if you like my content, I mean, if you didn't like my content, then why are you still here? As always, why are you still here? I mean, unless you've been sitting here for 30 minutes wanting to see that my fucking face, oh, look, his face is bigger, now I can get really fucking mad, yes, you're gonna get really fucking pissed off, yeah! You know, assuming you're still here because you like my videos and don't want to tear my head off, you know what, leave a like, comment, just keep watching the video. All that stuff helps me out in terms of algorithm promotion, and it's awesome. And if you want to support me a little bit more, then head on over to my Patreon page. If you want to throw a few bucks my way, then it helps me out more than you know. You guys paid for my oil change today, and you paid for my tire rotation, and you paid for my new windshield wiper blades, things I kind of need on my car so I can drive safely and not have to worry about breaking down or getting caught in a rainstorm and not being able to see. So, thanks for that. It helps a lot more than you think. It also paid for my Adobe subscription this month, so that's just fewer things I have to pay for, and it lets me keep making videos, and it lets me keep driving my fucking car. So... I really can't thank you guys enough, because it just provides a little bit more of a cushion. That's all good, man. I really do appreciate all of your support, and, yeah, that's enough of me fucking rambling on about absolutely nothing. Don't do cum jokes. For the love of God, don't just spam cum in. It's gonna happen. Just, I accept it. I accept the baby butter, the Jesus juice, just whatever. Fucking go crazy. Fuck it. Just get it out of your, leave cum in the comments. I know you're gonna do it. You're gonna fucking do it. I know that you're gonna fucking do it. Now, shut up. The next person I see say cum gets banned. Don't do it. I will do it. Don't tempt me. Is it out of your system now? Have you worked it out? Have your primal urges to talk about fucking semen gotten out of your system? Are we good? We can move on now. Mad Milk. It's pretty good. Health back on hit, on demand, is a very powerful mechanic. And this item does it infinitely better than the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol. Because you rely on your Scattergun's damage, which scales with how much damage you do with the amount of health you get back, rather than this is just a flat amount of damage per shot. I would much rather rely on this to get health back, and also have my team get health back on hit, rather than being more selfish and having to rely on random bullet spread to get health back on hit with this thing. This item for health back on hit is always going to perform better than this thing. and I'm gonna much prefer to use this more often. This item is very good. I'm gonna put it down here. It's more effective than it is fun, but it's like honestly one of Scout's best items, because again, health back on hit is an insanely powerful mechanic, especially on the most mobile class in the game. It's very, very good. And only sacrificing your pistol, wow, it's very strong. Easily one of Scout's best items. And why would you ever use this when this exists? It's meta in MVM because again, health back on hit and you're slowing down, you know, fast scouts, which is good. That's good. That's what else do I say? It's a good item. You can still make the argument for swapping either of these things. But this is still, I'll nudge it to be a little bit higher than the stock pistol because this is just so good. And again, you're helping your team. Oh, it's very good. But I still have more fun using, you know, a pistol or a cleaver in comparison, but it's still up here. I'm gonna bump you actually. Force of Nature is up here. Winger. Winger is in the same category as the Atomizer in that anything that increases Scout's mobility without any sort of negative, serious detriment is insanely good. Higher jumps on Scout let him get into positions where he normally couldn't get to. Third extra jump on Scout lets him get into positions that you wouldn't otherwise normally be able to get to. But you sacrifice decent damage for higher mobility. Whereas with this thing, you don't really sacrifice anything for higher mobility. That's why if you want better mobility, you're pretty much always going to want to use this thing instead of this, because you can still get better mobility and retain damage or team assistance instead of sacrificing either of those things for only 5 shots per clip and 15% higher jumps, something like that. It's still your stock pistol, but it's only 5 shots. You're having to reload more often. It's very much a desperate move to whip out the winger and try to get a kill with only 5 shots, right? You're only going to be able to do that when you know you can secure that fucking kill because you've pumped in 3 scattergun shots, you whiffed a couple of them, but still dealt slightly enough damage where you can follow up and then pop someone, yeah? Does the thing have a damage bonus? It's only 2 extra damage per shot, 17%, that 50% doesn't amount to much. It's only 10 extra damage at base damage range, so it's not that impactful. I still see this thing being used more often for mobility than some kind of quick damage output. You still have, what, max ramp up with your stock pistol. It goes from 15 damage to, what, 24? 22 versus 27. It's still like, yeah, I still always consider this more as a mobility tool rather than some kind of rapid fire damage output thing. Because if you're going for the rapid fire damage output thing, you're going to use the baby faces box because you get 9 shots with normal damage and a faster firing rate instead of this. The damage bonus does help a little bit if you're needing to whip it out in that last ditch desperate move to bring down whoever it is you're attacking. So there is that. But I always feel like people are using this for the increased mobility, you know? Do I have more fun? I don't know. I think I have this an equal amount of fun with either of these pistols, roughly. There's the winger for you. It's more of a mobility tool rather than a damage tool, and that's how I've always seen this thing. And if you're going for mobility, use the Atomizer. You sacrifice effectively nothing for the extra mobility this thing grants you in comparison to this. CritaCola. I don't know, man. I've always hated this item, but it also sucks. It's just, yeah, it sucks dick to suddenly have to deal with a Scout who's dealing, what, 20% more damage? It's mini crits now. Yeah, you deal mini crits on Scout, which are very powerful, but then you mark for death for 5 seconds after the first shot. Okay, that's why it's banned in competitive. Because you could suck this thing down, you could run in, you could deal like a 141 damage meat shot to somebody. You could 2-shot any of the effective classes in competitive with the second follow-up shot. And you're not punished until after you take that first shot, which is really fucking strong. And yeah, and then mid-range, it's 100 damage. So I totally understand why this would be banned in competitive, because it would just make the most powerful class in competitive that much more viable in that he becomes the sudden pick class. Oh, I can more readily take down the med and, you know, sway the course of a game. Because yeah, sacrifice a Scout for taking mini crit damage after dealing a high damage first shot and following up with the second one. If he's already going in that far anyway, he's probably gonna die, so may as well have the extra damage at your disposal, right? So I totally understand why it's banned in competitive. But inside of the casual environment, it's not that good, because if you land that first shot on somebody, the entirety of the enemy team is immediately going to descend on you and fucking rail you because you're taking mini crits now. In competitive, yeah, probably broken. In casual, not that good, because there's so many other variables and factors that lead to those mini crits being a far bigger detriment to the scout than they otherwise would be in a competitive game. And in casual, it's like, I honestly, I haven't used this thing in, oh my god, I actually can't remember the last time I've used this thing. This is easily one of my least used items in the game, hands down, because it's just not that appealing. Do I really just want to suddenly die in one shot to effectively anything? Or do I want to use any other secondary and be far more effective with it? This thing, oh god, I hate the candy cane. I hate. This is another extremely polarizing item in TF2. Even good scouts hate this thing because its downside of 25% extra damage taken from blasts is horrific. You get one shot by a rocket. You get one shot by a pill. Splash damage from either of those things is gonna knock you down to below 50% of your health. It is awful using this item. And the upside of getting a small health kit back on kill, I feel like the offset of getting a small health kit back on each kill versus taking a fuckload more damage against blast, which is one of Scout's main counters, are rockets, by the way. That's just, you just die so fucking quickly whenever you use this thing, and the upside is just not that good. At higher levels of play, yes, this thing becomes useful because you effectively never touch the ground and you become harder to hit. But then at lower levels of play, for people who are just like starting out or just don't play this game in any serious capacity, this thing sucks. You just get mowed down. Oh, it's horrible. It's so bad. I really do hate melee items that make you take more damage for some kind of an upside. I despise the way damage vulnerabilities work in this game. I really fucking hate them. It's such a punishing thing to have either a universal or a specific type of damage penalty on something that is just so... I hate it. Hate this item. It sucks to play with. You get destroyed whenever you use it, and its upside is so very rarely realized that it's just like... The amount of damage you normally take in a casual game is not offset by the health kits you get back. Period. And even if you're a good scout who's playing scout normally, you just die faster to the things that would normally kill you. If you're not playing against a soldier or a demo, this thing is a direct upgrade. If there is a soldier or a demo on the enemy team, it's a direct downgrade. He basically just has to avoid demo or soldier, otherwise he dies in one shot to anything, right? I would say the sun on a stick is just marginally, barely more useful than this thing, right? Because at least you have an on-demand resistance to fire and the gimmick of critting people who are on fire, instead of just dying in one shot to like the most common damage source in the game next to hit scan. Am I a fan of war? You know what? I am a fan of war. I have a lot of fun with this thing. I'm gonna put it in like low B tier. I like the fan of war because I like using it with the force of nature. I like running up on someone, slapping him in the fucking ass, and then blasting them with the force of nature, dude. It is so fucking fun to do that. Yes, you have to go out of your way to get within melee range to mark someone for death, but then you whip out any other primary and you just fucking go to town. You two-shot anything at close range whenever you're using the Fan of War. It is awesome. Love doing that shit. It's very much a risk versus reward weapon, and man, is it fun to use. I love parrying this thing with the force of nature mostly. I'm leaving it in B tier. It's more fun, and it's the meta in MVM because you're marking giants for death. Yeah, and again, I'm sure people are gonna bitch and moan. It's like, why is the Fan of War better than this thing? Why is it better than the Boston Basher? Why is the Fan of War better than the Boston Basher? You could build Uber charge with this. You could make people bleed. You make people bleed. It's the meta and competitive mode. You make people bleed with the Boston Basher. You like this more. You will only use this because it's a meta and competitive mode. Fuck you, this is more fun. I hate this thing. Why are you ever going for melee damage on Scout? You're only ever using this to build up Uber. Fuck you. This is more fun, has more use than this does. When you're within melee range on somebody. More fun and casual, and kind of useful. Listen, your sacrifice is not in vain if you manage to smack someone with this, because they're marked for death for a long time. So if you fuck up and die, the rest of your team can follow up and kill the guy that you marked for death. Whereas if you fuck up with this, you hit yourself and then just die without any sort of benefit coming to you or your team. Yeah, not for damage, they're for utility. Thank you. That's why this belongs here, but it's also fun. Moving on to Rap Assassin. You know what, man? The Rap Assassin for me is in the similar category as the Cleaver. To me, it's just a weaker Cleaver. The base damage is what, 15? It does full bleed damage, but man, having a projectile that you can chuck across the map that makes someone bleed that you can follow up with either the cleaver, you do cleaver, Rap Assassin, or Rap Assassin Cleaver, and then follow up either of those with any primary weapon. It's so fucking fun. It's great. It's got a deeper arc. It's got a slower projectile speed. It has a fast recharge like the cleaver does, so you can use these things pretty frequently, and you can stack bleed on both of these things, and man, is that good. Love the Rap Assassin. Really spices up Scout, and it actually makes one of his melee options a very good offensive option, because you can juice out damage at a range. And appropriately, this thing does no melee damage, as it should, because again, once more, you're not going for melee damage on Scout, you're going for utility. So this thing makes you deal more damage than you normally would, because it gives the Scout a third ranged damage option, which is really fucking good. A third ranged damage option on a class like Scout, where all of his damage options are hit scan, is insanely good. It's easy A tier, and it's a lot of fun to use, very effective. Also, yeah, and if you do actually manage to beat the shit out of someone with this thing and get a kill with just the melee swing, you can humiliate someone that way too, Jesta. I see that. Yep, this fucking... fun. Love the Rap Assassin. We're moving on to the last Scout item, the Shortstop. And the Shortstop is easily one of my favorite items in TF2. I love the Shortstop to death. It is so fucking fun. You have to basically completely change how you play Scout. Instead of going for your normal burst damage like you would with any of his other Scattergun options, this behaves more... it's hard to say what it behaves more like. It's somewhere in between a pistol and a minigun, because it's a steadier stream of damage in comparison to higher bursts of damage. And playing Scout with a steady stream of damage is tricky, right? Because normally you're timing your movements with each of your individual shots. Whereas with the Shortstop, it's a steady stream and you have to land consecutive shots on it in order for it to be very, very useful. But once you get used to keeping the beam or your crosshair on someone for an extended period of time, so you have those consecutive shots landing on somebody, the damage on this thing and how effective this can be is really underrated. A lot of people seem to have kind of pushed themselves into this rut when it comes to playing a Scout. They feel like they can only ever use the better burst damage options. I'm putting Shortstop in A tier, by the way, because of what you can do with this thing. It's fun, man. It changes the Scout's effective range. All of the Scout's scattergun options are the most powerful at point blank to close-ish medium range. The Shortstop extends his effective range to medium/far range. You do more damage at far range than you do with any of the other scattergun options, because each of the individual pellets does more damage on the Shortstop than anything else, because like each pellet does max 3 at fall off, whereas the Shortstop does 6 to 24 damage at far range. So you're doing, each pellet does twice the amount of damage as any scattergun pellet, so at medium to far range you're always doing more damage. And fun fact, we're going back to my little diagram here. Let me teach you something about the Shortstop, all right? You may not know how the spread works on the Shortstop. So instead of a 3x3 grid, aside from the panic attack, this is the only other scatter/shotgun in the game that has a different bullet spread configuration. The bullet spread on the Shortstop is actually shaped like this. It's shaped in this weird T configuration like this. And each shot only has 4 pellets. And this center pellet, the 4th pellet, is 100% accurate all the time. So you already have a higher damage center pellet, and then these other 3 higher damage pellets like this. It's very good. But what's interesting about this is that I don't know if this is just from observation or if this is actually something that's in the game. It feels like the spread on this has a much tighter cone than any other shotgun. It feels like when you have random bullet spread on with this thing, the spread isn't nearly as exaggerated as it is with any other scattergun or any other shotgun option. I don't know if that's actually true. This is just what I've been doing testing with random bullet spread, and whenever I've been using this thing, it feels like its spread variation is a lot more narrow than any other scattergun or shotgun option, which means, if it's true, that it's actually buffed at medium to far range. So Scout's effective range is boosted, or rather I should say shifted, from like you have close, medium, far. Normal Scout is kind of right here. Shortstop Scout is around here. So you have to keep your distance, keep that steadier stream of damage on players, and then you're juicing out a lot of damage with the Shortstop rather than with stock. So your effective range goes to here, with the Shortstop. You can juice out a decent amount of damage. It's pretty fucking fun. If you haven't tried out the Shortstop, highly recommend that you do. I am curious if it has some hidden stat of higher accuracy. I really want to test this now. I want to look at this spread real quick. I'm gonna check this. Wonder by how much more it's accurate. Huh. It'd be tricky to figure out. Doing this sort of thing visually, I can do R decals 100. So what is that? R underscore decals. Is it R decals 100? 100. All right, so what is this? We'll do like... So we're in this square. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. 50% more accurate? I don't, I think it'd be pushing 50. It's pushing 50, but it's certainly more than 25%. It's definitely more accurate, but it's hard to say by how much. That's interesting to know. 33%? Somewhere between 25 and 50? Perhaps? Interesting that the wiki has no mention of the tighter spread. Surprised no one's pointed that out before. I've seen it floating around, but no one seems to have acknowledged that. Interesting. So, that, I guess, more or less confirms that the Shortstop has tighter spread than any other shotgun or scattergun. Awesome. So yeah, that just buffs it. That just buffs this item even more at medium to far range, which is really good. Backscatter, I know the backscatter's... You know what's interesting about the backscatter? Is that when fixed bullet spread's off, or when fixed bullet spread's on, it's not nearly that bad. But when random bullet spread's on, it's horrific. So like, the 20% increase in spread translates into this. That's pretty bad. Actually, but even then, even if it's fixed, it's not like horrific. That's still pretty bad though. Oof. In comparison to stock, man. Yeah, why would you ever use this thing? Oof. Yeah, that's gnarly. Nope, not a fan. And then RBS on. You know, the spread's gonna be pretty wild. It's like, it's gonna be a lot wider than the fixed. Yeah. Let me go back to stock. Yeah, dude, that is... Am I in the right spot? They look the same. Random bullet spread on, there's not that much of a difference, but with fixed weapon spread on, that 20% really shines through. Interesting. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. So if you're playing on a Valve server, perhaps the random bullet spread helps you in some regard. But then when the random bullet spread decides to screw you over, it'll really screw you over. Because you have a wider cone in terms of the chance of spread in comparison to the tighter cone that is stock. Interesting. Oh, also, I forgot the shove. Of course, the fucking shove. Ah, yes, the one damage shove that rarely comes in use. I almost never use it. I feel like it's not that useful. If you're already that close in range as Scout, just shoot the guy. You're gonna damage him. Yeah, there's a reason why I forgot about it, in that it's not that good. There you go. There's the Scout tier list. That's a wrap.